Okay, well, sticking with military matters, let's come on to Northern Ireland. And of course, the British government has some legislation in the works. It's the Northern Ireland Troubles (brackets Legacy and Reconciliation) Bill. Now, this is all about British Army veterans who have been accused of crimes in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, 1969 till 1998 or so. There have been court cases going on for many, many years now, or attempts to bring court cases against military veterans in the UK. Now, I'm not going to take any sides here. There were atrocities committed on both sides in the Northern Ireland conflict, but the point here, well, we'll come on to the main point of this at the end, but before we do, here is Chris Heaton-Harris, who's the current Northern Ireland Secretary, saying these amendments that have now been tabled, so they've tabled some amendments yesterday to this, and because this legislation, they claim, will deliver better outcomes for those most impacted by the Troubles, including victims, survivors and veterans, while helping society to look forward. So Heaton-Harris saying these amendments reflect the extensive engagement that is taking place and demonstrates the government's commitment to working with all interested parties regarding their concerns and how these might be addressed. The government remains absolutely committed to delivering better outcomes for those most impacted by the Troubles. So serving British military who are all now retired, still coming under massive pressure as a result of continuing attempts to bring prosecutions for what may or may not have happened in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. But in the meantime, as everybody knows, Tony Blair, as part of the Good Friday Agreement, issued letters to the IRA telling them that they were no longer wanted by the police. So they were given a blanket amnesty for everything that they did, for any of the atrocities they committed, for any of the unprosecuted murders that they committed, torture and kidnappings and all that kind of stuff. In the meantime, since the Good Friday Agreement, British military veterans have been actively pursued and in some cases hounded literally to their deaths in order to try to bring prosecutions. And Alex, my argument here has always been that, in a conflict zone, there are always going to be problems on both sides of that conflict. But when the conflict is over, the rules need to be applied equally on both sides. And if they're applied on one side with blanket amnesty and on the other side with continuing prosecutions, that's deeply unfair. Now, in this case, they're claiming that this bill is going to bring an amnesty for the veterans and that it's going to, but it only brings that amnesty if the veterans absolutely cooperate with the process. If they refuse to cooperate with the process, they'll still be subject to the so-called rule of law as is being applied in this case. So there's still quite a bit of unfairness in this because there's no requirement for the IRA to take part in any process.
As you rightly identified at the end there, Mike, there is a frank admission here by the British government that the rule of law is being suspended for political, or what the British government and the Northern Ireland office might call improved outcomes. Law is being trumped already. I can't help but notice in passing that the Guardian's screenshot you showed there trivializes the matter by having alongside the piece a most viewed article that a moment that changed me, some writer, is when I began wearing skirts with pockets big enough to hold a wine bottle. Perhaps says as much about the audience as it does about the Guardian, but never mind. No, this is pretty awful. I will try to get to Kenny for the show notes a link to the definitive book on Tony Blair's comfort letters to the IRA for those who should read, would like to read up on that. The big buzzword towards the end of the Northern Ireland Troubles within Northern Ireland was there must be parity of esteem between the communities. And this, if it implies anything, implies equal treatment. But here, to throw a sop to Sinn Féin, who are increasingly, especially in the Republic of Ireland, being acknowledged now as fake nationalists, as globalists and internationalists, to throw them a sop, the promise has been made from Thames House, the joint headquarters of both the Northern Ireland Office and MI5, that we will put any veterans through the grinder if they do not, in Marxist style, admit their guilt. If they want a fair trial, then they're going to have hell to pay. These will be diplock courts in Northern Ireland because of one of the first things that happened in the Troubles was that trials in most cases in Northern Ireland were judge only, and that has been conveniently retained for such measures. We covered this, of course, with one particular veteran who sadly died during his trial. I do feel convicted that we need to be speaking to more British veterans about this. So don't give up communicating with us if you represent veterans. I know that there's a lot of fraught veterans out there. I'll just close by saying, where does the Armed Forces Covenant, otherwise known as the Military Covenant, sit with this? It became an issue during the coalition government 10 or more years ago. It was, as they say, rather lightly and flippantly these days, it was enshrined in law by statute. The Covenant, which is the British government's and all authorities pledged to look after veterans lifelong, not to break the law for them, of course, but to treat them fairly. That was voluntarily then signed by all local councils for matters like housing and dependency issues. But it doesn't seem to have been a factor in prosecution, which, as we've been reporting before, and the Daily Telegraph took the lead on it, at one point was being pushed by a West Country-based husband and wife team, Red Snapper, that was being based in, if I remember correctly, a disused Cornish Royal Air Force base, specifically to prosecute these old cases. There is a long backstory here, so more recent viewers might not be aware of it. But I'm afraid this is going to be the painful mockery at the end of the Troubles, as history is written, that Britain threw its own veterans to the wolves.
Okay, thank you very much.